All right. Welcome to the Integrated Resources Informational Interview Program all about jobs. Today we're talking with personal chef Becky Trowbridge. I hope I pronounced your name right.
Perfectly, yes.
Okay. We'd like to make this interview more of a conversation, so you can type your questions into the chat window, or you can ask questions in between the other questions. The session is being recorded, so for the sake of audio quality, please mute your audio. Today we have Janet Murr, a coach, a well-loved coach, who is going to be interviewing Becky today. At this point, I am going to turn it over to Janet. There you go.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Janet Murr, and I'm looking forward to interviewing Becky Trowbridge today. For those of you that don't know, Becky is my across the street neighbor. I have known her for a very long time, and if I looked that way and waved out the window, I would be able to see Becky. So she's my neighbor, and a wonderful neighbor at that. So I'm lucky to have her as a neighbor.
Likewise.
Yes, looking forward to interviewing you today, Becky. And so welcome. So I want to start by asking you about the name of your business, Bohemian Chef. Tell us a little bit about how you chose that name.
So when I was growing up, my grandmother was an inspiration to my cooking, because every time I went to her house, it smelled wonderful, and everything we ate as a family at her house was just divine. She is from the Bohemia region of Czechoslovakia, which is actually a historical region of Czechoslovakia. It was formerly the western part of Czechoslovakia. So Bohemia, again, is a historical region. That's part of the reason for my name, Bohemian Chef. And in today's perspective, Bohemian is often coined as a sort of eclectic, colorful, I would say it's a form of art almost. There's clothing stores called Bohemia. There's home goods lines called Bohemian. They're all characterized by being very colorful, very eclectic, sort of a little bit out there, mixing new with old. And that's what today's Bohemia is all about. And that's kind of what my food is all about. It's always colorful, bold, interesting, and a little artistic and designer, I suppose you could say. So Bohemia from my Bohemian grandmother, and Bohemian from the artistic version of today.
I like that.
And really, you probably didn't know that, did you?
I did not know that. And I do know your food to be bold and colorful and eclectic and delicious. So that's really neat to know that about your grandmother. I did not know that about her influence. That's really neat to know. Have you ever had a chance to visit Bohemia?
As a matter of fact, we went to Prague several years ago. Just a 4-day trip to the city of Prague in Czechoslovakia, and it was fabulous. I really felt like I had kind of gotten home to my roots. It was a quick visit, but it was nice to experience some of the things that I had witnessed with my grandmother.
Oh, that's so neat. So another question, after all the classical training you've had, what drew you to like the natural style of cooking and what you were also trained? I should probably preface that by saying, what has your classical training been?
Okay, so I'll give you a very brief order of my culinary career in just a little bullet form. I suppose my culinary career started with my first career. I was an engineer for 14 years, and that taught me a lot about project management and how to put things together and how to deal with people. And when I ended that career, I had to figure out what to do next with my life. Well, it was sort of all about everything I loved had to do with food. I loved reading cookbooks. I loved reading magazines, all that sort of thing. So the first thing I did as an engineer was put myself in cooking classes. So that's kind of where it all started. I couldn't wait. I got my first paycheck for my engineering job, and I started taking cooking classes.
I'd love to hear that. I
We're
didn't
from
know.
a place called Cuisine. What?
I said
What's
I
that?
didn't know that you were an engineer and that you shifted gears. Before you go on a little bit, what made
Yeah.
you stop being an engineer?
Well, I got laid off, of course.
Oh yeah, got it. Okay, I missed that part. I think you might have cut out from me for just that.
No,
one
I
moment.
actually, I didn't say that because
Okay.
I just said I switched.
Yeah. Okay, I got
Yes,
it.
I
Okay.
got laid off, and that's very
Switch,
much what happens these days. You get laid off from one job,
Yeah.
you have to figure out what to do with the rest of your life, right?
And then you can picture what you love and then do what you love. And I like that you did that and started taking the classes. Okay. All right. Go on about
All right.
where you got that.
So I took, let's see. So I started in personal chef business in 1994, and excuse me, 1996. In 1994, my younger sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. And at the time, the best thing you could, what you could read about the subject was to help yourself from getting breast cancer, to eat a natural diet, free of preservatives, free of dyes, chemicals, and all that kind of thing. So even before I started my personal chef business in 1996, I had this sort of awakening in 1994. And I thought, well, I should really do that. And so really, that's sort of been my whole premise of the philosophy of my cooking, is cooking as much, using as much organic products as I can, as much natural products. I read labels constantly. I hardly ever use things that contain chemicals or dyes. I'm very much a natural foods type of chef.
So that goes to one of my other questions. And it was there anyone else besides your grandmother that helped influence your love for cooking? And that was when your sister got diagnosed and you were able to start helping her. Anyone else that helped influence you early on? Were you
Yes.
ever in a restaurant setting, or were you always a personal chef?
Okay, here you go.
I think besides my grandmother, the next person in line to really influence my baseline desire was my neighbor down the road. And my neighbor hired me when I was a kid, and I mean kid like junior high and high school, to clean her house. She was a very well-known interior designer. So her house was beautiful and her things were beautiful, and she threw beautiful parties. And the older I got and worked for her, she would hire me to come make recipes for her and serve at her dinner parties and clean up. So I was her, little helper. And I would show up at her house and she'd have the recipe and she'd have the ingredients. And she said, "Hey, make this." And I remember that first time that happened, I just kind of went, "Can I do this?" And of course I did. It was not a problem, but that was, she was very instrumental. She gave wonderful parties, and I was actually, able to feel how wonderful it was to be involved in a party like that, and how many people, how good cooking and great service and great atmosphere made for a great time for a lot of people. So I was in high school when that happened, and that I was pretty much sold on food. So off I went to engineering school. Didn't do a lot of cooking there, but then, like I said, when I got my first job as an engineer, I put myself in cooking classes right off, and that's where it all started.
So you told me a little bit about your philosophy, but tell me a little bit more about your philosophy and your thoughts about the kinds of ingredients you use.
Well, like I said, I pretty much really like to use organic produce and meat and things as much as I can. So if I can buy that, I will. If the produce is available organic, I buy it. Frozen food, there's many options for organic foods these days. So first I go that route, and then I go.
Can I jump in with a question?
Yes.
Everyone probably knows this, but I don't cook. Becky knows I don't cook, but what does organic mean?
Oh, well, the USDA, United States USDA Department of Agriculture, has a whole definition list of how things can be classified as organic. So it depends on if it's produce or meat products. Things, for instance, when you're growing produce, you have to be clean of any pesticides or herbicides for a number of years. There's very distinct rules and regulations about this that I do not know about. So,
Organic,
but just go to say
yeah.
that or the USDA will stamp, I believe it's a stamp on all the products that are certified organic by the USDA.
I got it. Okay. Okay, I got it. Okay. So tell me about what other things you have done as a chef. I know you're a personal chef and people
Yep.
hire you to go into their homes, but do you do things like cater big parties, or what else have you done as a chef?
Well, I've done all sorts of things, a little bit of everything. And I've gone into people's homes and done dinner parties. I've made graduation parties. I've made wedding receptions, small and large. I have worked in a restaurant. I worked in a cafe, kitchen, Nordstrom Cafe, as a matter of fact. And that was a lot of fun. I worked in a startup Italian cafe in Pasadena. So I've had a lot of different culinary things that have sort of made up my cooking career.
This might be a question I might ask a little bit later, but what, off the top of your head, what was your favorite? Like, did you like a wedding the best, or did you like working? You probably liked all of them, but did you like going into Nordstrom to work there? Or did you like, you probably liked all of them, but what was your
Oh
favorite?
my gosh, that's a hard question.
I know.
What did I like best? Gosh, I have to say one thing about cooking. I can't really say I had a favorite job that I did, but I have ended up working for a lot of friends over the years. So to be able to put on a wedding reception with all the food and the servers and the fancy tables and tablecloths for a friend is especially heartwarming. So I think
like that.
working for friends is probably one of the best things I've done, regardless of what kind of party it is. So
I can imagine how that would be really special when it's all done and they just look at you. You made my special day amazing. Yeah, I think that
yes,
would be,
and that's
yeah.
one
yeah.
reason I really like being a chef is because you really have instant job satisfaction.
Yeah.
I mean, you do your job, everyone's happy, everyone's full, and you go away happy because they're happy.
I'm going to jump in with a quick Becky story. Like I mentioned, I don't cook. And that's, I'm not good at it, and I don't like it. So one Thanksgiving, usually we have it at my sister's house, and we had it at my house. And I was kind of panicking. And so Becky came over. She got every single dish ready, including the turkey, told me what I had to do or what I needed to do. And she brined the turkey. I don't even know what that means. Put all the little spices in the like outside skin, including like, I think it was like apple something and like leaves of something. And then everyone came over and they had this amazing meal. She had everything ready like that morning. All I had to do was put it in, and they started asking me questions. And they were like, so how did you prepare this turkey? It's amazing. The taste, the flavors. And then I would go in the other room, the bedroom, and I'd call Becky. I'd be like, tell me how I prepared this, because I was faking
What's
it.
in that?
And they'd be like, I'd run back in and I'd go, well, the stuffing is made with some apple chutney, blah, blah. So it was, you made that day very special for me. And then later on, I kind of fessed up and we all laughed about it. But that's one of those, I can definitely see why that would be special to you. Okay,
Can
so
I jump in and ask a question also?
sure.
Okay, I was so curious when looking at your resume, because you've worked at French places and Italian places and different in nationalities of food, but you've had a French training, right? Very classical kind of training, and I wonder what it's like to go from a certain style of cooking to cooking another international kind of food. What is that like to go from one country to the other in your kitchen?
Well, it just has to do with the ingredients, really. I mean, if you want to cook Asian food, you have to have an Asian pantry. So in your Asian pantry, you have to have a myriad of Asian ingredients, and you can buy almost all of them at Ralph's, basically. But if you're going to do Italian cooking, then there's a whole other realm of ingredients you need for that. So I'm not saying each cuisine has its own set of specialized ingredients, because a lot of things you may already have in your home. But one thing for sure, Asian food definitely has its own pantry.
Right.
So it is really just all about the ingredients. I mean, the techniques are not different. It's, you know, you cook as you cook. You saute, you season, you this, you that, but it's the ingredients that have everything to do with it. And then there are some cuisines that have special techniques. You know, there's the use the wok a lot in Asian cuisine. You use a tagine, which is a special clay pot when you're cooking Moroccan food. You know, there are some different and interesting vessels that you cook with, but mostly ingredients is a difference.
Becky, do
Thank
you
you.
have a favorite type of food? What's your favorite food? Actually, what's your favorite food to eat and what's your favorite food to prepare?
My favorite food to eat. Oh boy, it's a tough one. I would say I'll have to answer both the same. I love to
We
eat
ask the tough
lamb.
questions here.
I love to eat lamb and I love to make lamb. I have all kinds of recipes for lamb that range all sorts of ethnicities, so to speak. So rack of lamb chops, lamb stew, lamb, ground lamb, any kind of lamb. So that is my favorite.
That sounds delicious. Have you noticed any foods that are more popular now, aside from holiday foods, you know, than say maybe, you know, 10 years ago or 5 years ago?
Yeah. I keep up with the Los Angeles Times, and since that's sort of our general area, I read their food section, get their articles. I would say, I guess the right term is Latinx, which is, you know, any kind of Latin-y food. So Mexican, Spanish, Guatemalan, all the Latin-based ethnicities. It's had a big boom. And there's always articles about this taco place and that taco place. And so started the fusion taco place. And it's very much a lot of taco stuff going on right now.
Mhm.
There's also a last couple years, a big explosion in Korean food. So there's more Korean food available. A lot of Korean chefs are up and coming and opening their own places. And even more recently than that, Filipino food is sort of coming of age. And I think those are probably the newer things on the block.
Well, you're on the cutting edge. I did not know that. Thank you. So, is there any food that you prepare that you don't like at all and you're like, yuck, I have to touch this food?
No, I would say
Sardines or something like that?
I don't like liver, not at all. I would
Yeah.
not make liver.
I don't like liver.
I'm not
I do not
I'm
like
not
it.
even sure I would make liver for someone if they asked me. I might say,
That's
I
good
might,
to know.
I might say, can't do that. But there are also, now that I think about it, there are some very, very specific diets that are out there these days. The keto diet, the paleo diet, the super low fat diet, there are many, many different kinds of diets out. And I'm not interested in, nor am I, I'm just not interested in doing that kind of cooking. These diets, like international food, all require a vast knowledge of that particular cuisine, as well as a whole set of special ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone comes to me and says, oh, can you make me a gluten-free paleo, no tomato diet? I politely decline, because that's just not something I'm interested in doing.
And it's probably not as enjoyable, not as fun, because you're more of a, you know, like you had mentioned in the beginning, more of a, you know, let's enjoy all flavors. And
yes,
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
exactly. And I do love, I think you said, what's my favorite food? I do love international cuisine. And I love international cuisine based on, especially where I've been. Mm-hmm. So I have been to Morocco and Turkey and Italy, and these are like my favorite things to cook. They're just delicious. They're all, they all have their own little nuance.
So. I remember we've been to Morocco, but we went to Spain, and my husband and I, when we met, had paella for the first time, and it was amazing. And then I remember we went to Vietnam, and they gave me this dessert. It was in a bowl, and it was like seaweed, but it had cherries in it. And it was like their design. I mean, it was like their kind of dessert that everyone ate, and they were watching me, and they were like, this is like our specialty. And I was like, okay. And it was a spoon. You know, everybody has their thing. And I was like, okay. And there's a picture of me going,
Right.
I don't know what was in it, but yeah, it's fun with the international
Yeah.
types of foods.
Yeah.
Okay. So does a personal chef have a set schedule, like a regular schedule?
If you have your own business, which a personal chef is, you make your own schedule. So if you decide you want to work 3 days a week, you can work 3 days a week, and that can be your schedule: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you want to work 2 days a week, you can do that. It's a very much a self-employment sort of decision you make for yourself.
That's a nice benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like that. You could say, you know, I only want to
Yep.
work nights. I only want to work weekends.
Yep.
Yeah, because you can pick your clients. You can just do brunches for people.
Yep.
If you want. Yeah.
So typically a personal chef will go, and as you know, will go into people's homes with all their equipment. You have to take your pots and your pans and your spices and your spatulas and your knives and oils and vinegars and everything, because the people you cook for do not have these things in their homes. That's why they've hired you. They don't cook. Their spices are 5 years old. Their knives are dull.
That's me.
I know. So you have to pretty much bring it all with you. And then you spend all day cooking in their home, and you leave them with containers of food, some for the fridge, some for the freezer. So it's sort of an all day affair, and you arrive at their house in the morning and you leave when you're done, and then you just go to someone else's house the next day. So set schedule, I would say daytime hours.
Yeah.
And but personal chefs can have different clients who have different requirements. So when I was cooking at my busiest point, I had 18 different clients at once. Some clients had me cook for them once a week, some every 2 weeks, some every 3 weeks. And when I was that busy, I had to really get my calendar out and schedule everybody a month ahead. I'm saying, okay, my schedule is really tight for that week. Do you want a day or do you not want a day? So, and again, you can be as busy as you want or as slow as you want. You can have one client and still be a personal chef.
Yeah, that's a lot of scheduling. And do you, 2 questions about that. If they canceled when you were that busy, do you charge a cancellation? Do you make them pay anyway? If it was that busy, you probably don't, because they, but I could see how somebody would be like, you know what, you have to pay anyway because I'm super busy. Someone else could have had that slot. But
I don't think I've ever had that come up, because people really want you to come.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason someone would have to cancel is if they called and said, look, 2 people in my house have the flu, you can't come today. And I don't remember that ever happening.
Yeah.
So that certainly is, and then that's not their fault. If you've purchased their groceries already, most clients should be understanding enough to at least reimburse you for the groceries you purchased for them. So.
Yeah. I didn't know that you went to their house with the food. That was my other question. I thought you prepared everything at your house and just brought that to them, but that wouldn't make sense because then you'd have to heat it up again. See, I don't think in terms of, my head doesn't go where cooking. So I thought you just prepared everything at your house and then you just showed up with the filet mignon and put it on their, like that show Below Deck. You just came out with the plate, but you can't do that because you have to drive to their house. So everyone who's listening, I'm picturing what Becky does now. Okay. So we asked what a typical day was like and how many hours. Here's another question. What about the safety and cleanliness precautions and the care that must be taken as a personal chef? What's your safety and precautions?
I think you just have to be smart about everything. As a personal chef, I really don't do anything in a client's home that I wouldn't do in my home.
That makes sense.
You wash your hands, I have dedicated cutting boards. I don't use the same cutting board. I would take a cutting board, cut up raw chicken, and then I would wash the cutting board and I wouldn't use it again and put it in the dishwasher. So things like that. You don't want raw meat mixing with vegetables. So I always keep my cutting boards separate. So that's one thing one can do. But otherwise, I mean, at home, people, actually everyone should do that at home.
Yeah.
And otherwise, there really is nothing different than just cooking for your house than cooking for someone else. Just take your soap and water and clean sponges and just be clean and be neat.
Yeah. And clean as you
Now,
go.
yeah, if you're working in a restaurant, it's a whole nother situation. You're required by law to have a special sanitation bucket with special sanitizer in a bucket with a rag in it right underneath the place you work. And that's what you wipe up with. You don't use a reusable sponge. You use a special sanitation bucket. And when you're in a restaurant, you have a 3-stage sink. When you're in someone's home, you have the sink they have. You don't have a special 3-stage sink. You don't, rinse, wash, and sanitize.
That makes sense. So have you ever seen people with disabilities or with developmental disabilities working in a restaurant or in a kitchen that you've worked at?
I personally have not, but that doesn't mean they're not there.
Yeah.
My restaurant and cafe experience has been quite limited, so I haven't really.
Those were pretty small places.
Yeah, they've all been fairly small places.
Question?
Yeah. Hi, Becky. My name is Jason McCarty. Thank you so much for coming on and joining with us today, and really enjoying your presentation. I wanted to mention we had an individual, Jason Cohen, who lives in New York, and he really had a gift and a passion for cooking.
Mm-hmm.
And he was working at Corner Bakery, and he would just be so focused on everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, some of the gourmet meals that he prepared at his home were pretty incredible. And then I also wanted to ask you, you said that there haven't been any food items that have been aversive towards you, where you felt like nothing?
Well, I suppose I did have a client once, a couple clients, who had health issues and they could not have a lot of sodium. Like I couldn't add any salt in anything. And so I would do what they asked, and I would make this food, and I would try and add additional spices and seasonings and citrus things to amp up the flavor for them. They liked it, but I honestly left their homes not really liking anything I made that day.
Yeah. It's not as enjoyable because your whole passion is bold.
Bold and flavorful. And
Yeah,
you
flavorful.
really, in most chefs' opinion, you can't have bold and flavorful without using salt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you can't deny if people have health issues, and there are people with high blood pressure, they can't handle a lot of salt. So
Yeah, then I heard you mention that Filipino cuisine is up and coming. I'm Filipino. One of our clients, Harold's on this presentation also, but there was only one Filipino food that ever since I was little, and my mother used to make it. It's called dinuguan. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, this will probably be disgusting to everyone on the call, but it's Harold, do you know what dinuguan is? Harold? You have to unmute yourself. I'll explain what it is.
Yeah, it's almost like pig intestines.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah, it's basically I know how to make all the Filipino foods. My mom taught me.
And Harold, just to clarify, dinuguan is called, some people call it blood pudding.
Yeah,
Oh,
blood
yeah.
pudding. Yeah, yes, that's
Sure,
what it's called.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also blood sausage. I mean, blood sausage is a big deal in Europe, and it's made with blood.
Yeah, I used to cook this dish. It's called pancit. It's with noodles, and there's one called adobo. It's pretty easy. You put vinegar, a little bit of bay leaf, a little bit of cook the chicken first. You fry the chicken or you can fry the potatoes first, and then you kind of like saute it a little bit, and make sure the garlic doesn't burn. Sometimes I burn it. My mom said, "Don't burn it, don't burn it."
It
Yeah,
sounds
my mom always gets me to that all the time.
Burn-
Yeah, yeah, you know, I've been learning from my mom since I was 5 years, like when I was still in high school.
Oh, that's great.
that's so
Yeah,
neat.
I've been, yeah,
That is so neat. That just
yes,
reminded me of something. When I was a kid, there's 7 of us kids, and my mom used to prepare beef cow tongue, beef
ooh,
cow tongue, and each kid would get to have the tip, and we'd rotate, and everyone wanted the tip, and we'd rotate between the 7 kids, and we never thought that was weird at all. And then growing now, everybody's like, what? You'd put a cow tongue in the middle of your table? And it was a delicacy. Yeah. So
yeah.
And my husband had his mom would cook tongue. So it's not.
Excuse me, Becky.
Yes.
I have a question. Sorry for interrupting you,
no,
but
No.
cow's tongue is lingua, and I've had it before.
What is it?
I think it's called lingua,
uh-huh.
in from Colombia,
Yep.
and I've had it before, and it's pretty good.
Oh, that's so neat.
I'm not sure what that is.
Thank you.
Well, it's the same thing. My former ex-boyfriend was from Colombia, so I had a little bit of taste of it.
That's so neat. We have something in common, Ashley. Okay, so my next question was, how would you describe I was going to say the perfect person to be a personal chef, but kind of how would you describe the right qualities in someone that wants to be a personal chef? And wait,
Well,
one minute. As you're answering that, I have to do one thing, and I'll be right back as you're answering that.
All right. You want me to wait? Or you
No,
on your?
you go ahead. You go ahead. I'll just be right
Okay. Okay. So I think the first quality one has to have is to be a personable person, friendly, smiling, and able to adapt to meeting a variety of personalities' needs, because your clients will be all sorts of interesting characters. You'll have the nice people, you'll have the not so nice people, you'll have the very wealthy people who just consider you part of the staff, you know, and treat you like that. Cooking, of course, is important, but really, people hire you for who you are. They're not going to hire someone who is not going to be friendly and personable in their home. So that's probably the first big thing. The second thing is, yes, you need to know how to cook, and cook well, and cook with some speed about it, because you don't want to be in someone's home for 12 hours cooking. What else? Oh, or you have to be organized, because you have to make grocery lists and lists for how you're going to cook that day when you're in their house. And organized, personable, and a good cook.
Mhm.
You also need to be able to market yourself. So you need to either put your name out to friends and get help from your friends as to, you know, who might be interested in having you cook for them. I did quite a bit of advertising in papers and this kind of thing, which honestly didn't get that much business. The most business I got was from people I ran into personally and said, oh yeah, I'm a chef and I cook for people. And they would say, oh, that sounds interesting. And then they might try me and refer me to a friend of theirs, and so on and so forth. So as much you can do advertising, but for this kind of business, word of mouth and personal contact is the best way to get yourself noticed.
All right. So I think I'm going to pick up with the next question until it looks like Janet is connected by camera, but not by microphone. So you've mentioned a lot of really interesting qualities. What would you say is the most important preparation to be a personal chef? If let's say
You just
somebody
want it-
from this call wanted to do it.
Oh, preparation? Well, you have to be a good cook. I mean, that's, you know,
Bottom line, yeah.
to be a cook. If you're not a cook, then it's not gonna it's not gonna work for you. So you
Right.
can, you know, I when I started my personal chef business, I was totally self-taught. I had cooked for myself and my husband for years, and I had my nose in cooking magazines, and I was always trying something new. I didn't go to culinary school until after I had my personal chef business for 7 years. Now I had taken some cooking classes. Taking cooking classes always helps. But basically you just have to be a really good cook.
All right.
Hello,
That-
I am back. I wanted
Okay.
to let you know, I lost you for a minute. My computer was going dead. I grabbed the charger and it went dead right as I was
Ah,
to charge it. Oh, right. Hello. Wendy, are you wanting to continue for a moment while I get my bearings?
sure. I'll go with another question.
Okay.
So what advice would you give to any budding chefs on this call? Anything different than what you've already said, Becky?
I don't think so. You just have to, well, I guess another piece of advice would be if you like to cook and this sounds interesting to you, you should probably have all your recipes written down somewhere so that when you know, you don't want to, you need to have a set of recipes. Let's put it that way. Because let's say you go to someone's home and you cook them Italian penny pasta casserole, which Janet has had on a few occasions. Well, let's just say that same client wants you to make that same dish for them every time you go to their house. If you don't have the ingredients exactly written down every time, then it's not going to turn out the same time every time. So it's very important to have good, dependable recipes.
And to be precise. It sounds like you need to be precise in your ability to replicate.
Yeah.
We have a question from Tiffany. She wants to know, what are the sizes for meat?
Sizes for meat. How much? I'm going to guess what she means is what size, what portion size.
Portions, you know, if you were going to the butcher and you were going to ask for.
So with chicken breasts, I always allowed like 6.5 to 7.5 ounces per person. Fish, 7 to 8 ounces a person. Pork tenderloin, 7 to 8 ounces a person. My portions were always generous because, you know, people like to eat and then they like to have a little bit left over for lunch the next day or something.
Right. And it sounds like Tiffany likes spices. She wants to know what kind of spices for meat.
Oh, thank you for reading the chat because I haven't been.
Yeah.
You know what? I have never had to actually do a Zoom and respond to chat. So thank you. What kind of spices? Oh, well, there you have it. Let's see. Well, I have to say it all goes back to what kind of food you want to make. So if you're cooking Italian food, it's going to be oregano, basil, thyme. If you're cooking, let's say, we'll say Moroccan food because I like Moroccan food. You combine things like cinnamon and coriander and cumin and garlic and ginger. Those are the seasoning bases for whatever meat you're making. You can make Moroccan food with chicken or beef or fish. So it kind of depends on where you're going with your recipe.
That
Nice.
combination to me sounds really weird. So I couldn't even imagine putting those together. So that sounds like it would be fun to try.
And to make it even better with Moroccan cuisine, you always have some sweet element. So if you're going to cook a chicken Moroccan dish with those seasonings, you also put in dried apricots or some such thing. So it's a really wonderful cuisine. I really like it.
Oh, that's great. Now, Mario has another question for you. He wants to know, what is your favorite quick and easy snack that you like to make for yourself?
Oh boy. That I like to make for myself, or where I just open up the jar and stick my spoon in?
Well, you're a chef, so.
Oh my gosh. Snack for myself.
Well, let's start with that. What do you open a jar and just eat right away? That's actually kind of a fun thought.
Okay, well, it's like peanut butter, but it's called Nutz, Nutzo, I think, Nutzo, and it's gluten-free thing. It's in the peanut butter area, but it's got chia seeds and interesting stuff in it. And they blend it all together and make a peanut butter-like thing with it. And it's very healthy for you. So I take that and I cut myself up an apple, and that's my favorite snack to make myself.
That sounds good.
It's also breakfast.
Yeah.
Sounds delicious.
But,
It
you know,
looks like-
I try to eat healthy. So my favorite
Yeah.
fast snacks are celery and carrots
Yeah.
and pretzels from a bag.
Nice. It looks like Tiffany has a question. Tiffany, why don't you ask one question for right now, and then we'll move on and we'll keep coming back to you. How's that sound?
What is your favorite food?
Favorite food that I have made. Earlier I had said I really like lamb. So I would say lamb is my favorite food to eat and cook.
Mm.
I have mentioned in this discussion how much I like Moroccan food. So I like it because of its very bold, unusual flavors. So I would put Moroccan food and Middle Eastern and Turkish food in probably a very close second. So to anything lamb.
Do you like lamb?
Becky, I'm going to ask the next question, and then we can come back to you if that's okay, Tiffany. How do you see your job changing over the next 10 years? I know you had mentioned a little bit about that, but how would you see your job changing? What kind of like farther out?
Yeah, I think for myself personally, I'm interested in starting a food blog. So basically that's going to take coordinating, getting a lot of my recipes onto a blog website, taking pictures of everything I make, maybe some videos. Food blogging is its own business now. You can make money with it. I don't necessarily intend to want to make a lot of money out of it. I just feel like I spent 30 years of my life cooking food, and I have 2,400 recipes in my database, and it would be nice to share these things with other people. So food blogging is big, and that will continue to be big. One of the other interesting trends is something called a ghost kitchen that's very popular right now. It's where someone takes like a warehouse and then they put, say, space for 8 different chefs to cook in. So each chef would have their own pantry space, their own stovetops, their own dishware, their own sinks. And it's basically 8 little mini restaurants in one big, huge area. So what happens is this ghost kitchen, these individual chefs who don't have the money to start a restaurant will go to a ghost kitchen and they'll create all this amazing food, and then they'll sell it for delivery only.
Oh my goodness.
Or for pickup only.
That's such a good idea.
That is a real hot trend right now.
I can imagine.
So food
it's like doing.
Yeah, food trucks were a big deal several years ago, but you can't imagine the amount of money it takes to run a food truck, right? With all the maintenance you have to do on a truck and all the stuff in the truck. And this is a much more, I would say, sensible way. If you want to be an individual person, maybe there's 2 of you to create a business of making food you like, to get into one of these ghost kitchen situations.
And I was just reading about restaurants right now and how tough it is to try to do the outdoor dining and buy all the plexiglass and the heat lamps and to figure out the configuring of it, and then have to do that and the, semi-indoor dining, and then have to do that plus the takeout plus the delivery. So that, did you call it ghost dining or warehouse?
It's called a ghost kitchen.
Oh, ghost kitchen.
Ghost kitchen, and it's not in a restaurant. It's not in a restaurant at all. Someone has taken a warehouse space and made little individual kitchens, like 8. They'll put maybe 8 little kitchens in one space, and 8 chefs will come in and make their own cuisine and their own food and sell it from there, either for pickup or delivery.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
You're on the cutting edge, Becky Trowbridge.
Oh, I read. I know what's going on.
And my last
I have a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Courtney.
How do you deal with a difficult client?
That's a great question. Well, let's see how, sometimes I would just nod my head and say, whatever you want.
Yeah.
And and basically when you're in this kind of a business, the client's always right. So even if they're a difficult personality, you know, if you want to make money with that particular person, you just learn how to deal with it. If someone's not paying you or someone's treating you improperly, then that makes no sense to continue with a client like that. I did have some people that I had to politely decline, that I couldn't cook for them. And that's a lot of it had to do with the way their kitchen was set up. Because in order to do what you do as a personal chef, you have to have a kitchen that works. And there's one family who had 2 burners on their stovetop. I said, I can't come in here and cook all day with only 2 burners on your stovetop. And one family had a very, very, very old kitchen. Now I said, I can't work in this old tiny kitchen. So there are some situations where you just have to politely decline that you can't cook for people.
And the good thing
you are your own boss.
Yeah, I was going to say, good thing about your business is you don't have to, you know, have them for a client the next time.
Right. And
you really have to give them a reason, which is nice.
And in this particular job, you people come and people go. So you may have a client for a year and then they may never call you back to cook again. You may have a client for 2 years. One of my best friends started out as a client, and that was 15 years ago. So people come and go in this business, and the more difficult people will kind of drop out. You know, they end up being not interested, or if they're perfectionists, you're not good enough for them, so they'll move on. So
have you ever cooked food really badly for someone you don't like so they won't come back?
Janet.
I know, that's how my mind thinks. Okay, never mind.
No.
All right. So I guess that's all of my questions. I think
that was fun.
You're muted.
Here, go ahead and Tiffany, unmute yourself and ask your question.
What do you like to cook?
What was the question?
What do you like to cook?
Let's see. What else do I like to cook?
What about desserts? What kind of desserts do you like?
That's so weird because I was going to say chocolate. That was my next thing. Chocolate and lamb, chocolate souffle, chocolate cake, chocolate cookies. Oh, I love
I've had your desserts. They're amazing.
Nice. Here we go. Oh, here. Okay. So Tiffany, would you like to ask another question?
You like chocolate?
Yes, I like chocolate a lot.
All right.
Chocolate candy. I've made chocolate candy in a cooking class before. However, it's difficult. Making chocolate candy is one of those things where you have to have all sorts of special ingredients and special equipment to make. So if you're going to make chocolate candy, you have to really go at it 100% and buy all the stuff and, you know, make it a real focus.
Have you ever prepared food for the elderly in particular, and do they have any special needs?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I had quite a few older clients in their late 70s, mid 80s who just didn't want to cook for themselves anymore. And that worked out really well. Unfortunately, I have to say, sometimes this is not a service that is very well. It's not inexpensive. Let's put it that way. So many older couples who came to me thought it was much too expensive for them. And indeed, an older couple could go to Denny's or Marie Callender's or somewhere like that and probably get food for less than it would cost a personal chef to make it for them. So, you know, everybody has their reasons for hiring you, but I did cook on many occasions for older couples and it worked out really well.
Have you ever cooked for a children's party? Just kids?
No, but I made food for a while. That was it was fine. All you do is cook stuff and put it in the blender. You know, it's not rocket science.
Has anyone ever asked you to make like, you know, those little biscuits for dogs? Has anyone ever asked you to make like dog?
No edible dog treats. I've never been asked to make that.
We just got a new puppy. So
I know.
I won't ask you. I'm joking. I can go buy that down at PetSmart. And her food is delicious. If anyone else wants to know, if anyone wants to hire a personal chef from Bohemian Chef, it's not an ad, but she it's a really neat business. And I think it's a wonderful business to be in. I think that would be a neat business to be in.
Rochelle, did you have a question?
I don't know. Did you mention, have you ever written a cookbook? Do you have cookbooks?
I have not, but I think instead of that route, I'm going to try the food blog first.
A blog, yeah.
So
do you like
a lot of bloggers end up writing cookbooks after that. So we'll see how that goes. But I think the blog is going to be my first attempt.
Do you like to look at recipes and kind of create your own out of an existing recipe, or do you pretty much write all your recipes from scratch, or both?
Both. I would say I get a lot of inspiration from a lot of other recipes. So if I want to make something, I'll often go to the internet and I'll look up 3 or 4 different recipes for a certain dish, and I'll print them all out and I'll look at them and I'll say, oh, I like this and this and this and this. And I end up with a totally different recipe than any of them have put together. So I do get a lot of inspiration that way. It is also
creative.
What's that?
I said a job where you can be creative. I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's the fun part of cooking.
Yeah.
I was going to mention it. Go ahead.
Sometimes if there's nothing planned for dinner and I have no idea what I'm going to make, I do enjoy opening up the refrigerator and trying to figure out what to make. And some of those have turned into pretty good recipes. It's fun.
I was going to mention with anyone who's on the call that might be interested in this field, one of the things that I would suggest is just going online and looking up catering companies that are in the Orange County area. And a lot of them are larger, and you can just call and ask them if they have any positions open, or if they would be open to doing an informational interview or having you tour the facility. And a lot of times that leads to something that they might have open, you know, at the ground level, like coming in and chopping vegetables, or coming in and, you know, and starting to do something, you know, in the dishes area. And so there's a lot of ways to just be able to start in that industry, just something to get in the door. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. And let me tell you right now, there's hardly a fast food restaurant that doesn't have a sign out in front of them for hire. And don't think that working for fast food companies is any little significant thing, because they have very tight kitchens. They have all kinds of rules. They have, you know, so it's really it's a great place to go get your foot in the door and get experience.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who work in various fast food places, and you're absolutely right. And the rigor they use for cleanliness in those places is really, really impressive. Now, if somebody was interested in catering, have you ever seen internships in smaller catering kinds of places or personal chef places?
I think you just have to, as Janet said, contact them and ask them if they'd be interested in an intern. But as an intern, I think you'd have to be expected you would not expect to be paid for that. You'd have to just sort of follow along and do what you're told, and chop and dice and carry this from this, you know, unload the car, do whatever you need to do. But I think you're more than welcome to help, but I don't think you'd be right in asking for payment.
So you're not likely to get any training in that.
As I always say, internships lead to jobs. So.
Exactly. And a chef that I really admire and like a lot, he has a large catering business, and I'd like to learn from him. So I said, I'd like to come on your next, I did exactly what you said. I said, I'd like to come on your next job with you and help. And I said, I don't care what I do, just put me to work, and I watch. And let me tell you, you learn so much just by watching and being in the middle of the game, so to speak.
Right.
And at the end of the night, he gave me $100, which
Woo!
I expected
Win-win.
nothing. I expected nothing. And so it all worked out.
Mhm. So we have a question from Mario, and he wants to know, what was the most difficult dish that you were ever asked to make?
Okay. Oh boy.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's an interesting question.
I would really have to think long and hard about that. Sometimes people would ask would ask me as a personal chef, would you please make this recipe? It's my family. It's been in my family for years. That often is difficult. I would say, more often than not, regardless of what people ask me to make, I make it. And when you have all the tools you have in your pocket, nothing's really difficult. It may take a long time to make something, but it's not difficult or frustrating, or, you may have to go to 6 stores to buy all the ingredients to make something advanced and difficult, but yet that's not hard to do. You just have to go around. So the cooking part is not so much difficult as it is gathering everything you need to make something complicated and difficult. And I've been trying to think of something I just can't come up with anything.
That's what makes you a very good chef, because just thinking about that is fearful for me. And I'm not a fear type of person, but thinking about trying to make something like that, and you're like, just give me the recipe and give me the ingredients. I can make anything.
That's sort of how you have to be. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's many, many times, I'll never forget one time this woman called me and she says, I'm having a very nice dinner party for 8 people. And we've been to China, and I have all this stuff from China. So sure enough, her table from one end to the other was decked with tchotchkes and trinkets and spoon bowls and all this Chinese stuff. And she said, I want you to make a Chinese dinner. And I said, so I went home and I had to figure it out. My Chinese food repertoire was not very much, except for some, woks fried thing. So I really had to dig deep to find out how to make, sort of a very nice, fancy Chinese dinner party. And it was fun. None of the recipes I made for that dinner party I had ever made before. That's just what you do as a chef.
Well, I think that's a great story to end on. What do you think, Wendy?
I was just looking at the clock and thinking exactly the same thing.
That's inspiring.
I wanted to make sure we've got an opportunity for maybe one last question. Did everybody get their questions answered? I know, Rochelle, you looked like you may have had another question, but you're now muted.
Oh, all right. I have to ask this question because, Rochelle, it looks like there's a picture of you standing in a kitchen.
There's many pictures of me standing in kitchens.
What do you do? Because you must
I'm
be
actually
in the kitchen.
I was accepted into culinary pro pastry. I start January 6th. I love to bake.
Oh my gosh.
I've been baking. I've been baking for years. And when COVID hit and like Costco and Susie's Cakes and all those places closed, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. People started asking me, can I buy your cakes?
Oh,
So it's been really fun.
Yeah.
I've been creative, tearing recipes apart, creating my own
Yes.
things. And
yeah, right.
yeah.
Wonderful. That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm actually
luck.
multitasking in millions of ways this time of year, just trying to get ready for school and, trying to figure out how to keep everything else going that's already going in my life.
Exactly.
What about me, Rochelle?
Yes, you're still a part of that, a big part of that.
Congratulations, Rochelle.
Thank you. Very
awesome.
exciting.
And thank you, Becky.
Yeah.
So did you have, a question? Yeah.
I heard her talking a little bit about Pasadena and LA, and
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know if it was I'm just kind of curious, like what restaurants you've worked in California. Have you have you spent most of your 30 years working as your own personal chef, or were you, did you start somewhere?
Yeah, I'd say mostly I've done my own thing, catering and personal chefing. After I got out of culinary school, I worked at a Nordstrom cafe.
I did hear that, yeah.
That casual service where, you know, people, it's called fast casual. You walk up, you order, you pay, you sit down, they bring you your food. And then I worked at Italian cafe, same concept in Pasadena. I've also worked as a prep chef in an Italian restaurant, which for like 6 years. I've been what we'll call seasonal help in a ski town. So that was a lot of fun. And I was able to take a lot of my culinary school experience.
Becky, does this look familiar?
With them.
I think this is Nordstrom. Isn't it the Nordstroms? No, this is not you.
Possibly.
It's Cafe Bristol. I don't know which one it is. I think that's the one in Macy's.
It might be the type of business that she's talking about.
Yeah, I think so. It's like when you walk in and you order and they bring it to your table.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're winding down now. Okay.
I want to say something. I was working at Panera Bread for about 6 years until this
Until the shutdown.
they closed the dining room. I'm off for a little bit.
Okay.
A great
cool.
place to work.
Yeah.
I love it there.
Good experience.
Great.
Thank you,
Love
Courtney.
their food. Love their food. All right, we're gonna turn off the recording.
Joseph wants to say something.
Oh, I was going to say, Becky, thank you very much. Really
You're very welcome.
enjoyed your presentation.
My pleasure.
I was right underneath chef status before I went away to college, but I learned a lot from great chefs and cooks, and have 7 children and 4 grandsons. So I still cook a lot.
Oh, I bet. Yes. and good food, I'm sure.
Hey, Becky.
Nice meeting everybody.
Nice.
Becky.
I had fun too.
Becky, are you from Pasadena?
Actually, no. Indiana originally, then California, and I did live in Pasadena for 7 years. But
Oh,
now
okay.
I'm South Orange County mostly.
Okay, well, because I grew up in Pasadena, that's why. I asked.
Oh, cool.
All right. Well, thank you, personal chef and multi-talented chef, Becky Trowbridge. Trowbridge, boy, I'll get it right. Okay. We're so grateful that you've shared your insights and your experience with us. You've helped us expand our imaginations about what is possible at work. We'll see all of you at the next All About Jobs.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.